before we do that, let's first understand another important aspect of coding called tags. I'm going to open up a slide now to discuss what tag is. If you have been to a library, you would notice that most of the books are arranged in order. Let's say you have history books, you have novels, you have different kind of books, and each shelf is being represented by a tag, or let's say a name. You just see a tag on the shelf telling you that this particular product is, or this particular books are for history, these particular books are for stories, and things like that. This is how tags works in HTML. It's just a way of telling your browser that, okay, this particular text here is my heading, this particular text here is my paragraph, this particular text here is, or this particular item is an image, this particular item is a link or a video. So that's how tags are being represented in HTML. So we have types of tag. The first type of tag is opening tag. We have these opening tags. What they do is that they start the sentence of anything you want to add to your web page. This is the beginning where you tell your browser, from here start reading this as this. You understand? Then we have the closing tag. This is where you tell your browser, okay, stop reading this as this. Let's say stop reading this paragraph as paragraph. I want to put another thing. You understand? Then we have these self-closing tags. These self-closing tags, they are just single by themselves. They don't need anything to tell them that, okay, this is where I start and this is where I will stop. The way opening and closing tag works. Let's take a look at a simple example. You can see here, this is an opening tag. Give me a minute. This is an opening tag. The H1 here is an opening tag, and this is a closing tag for the H1. H1 means the first heading, or the first case of a heading, like how large do you want your heading to look like. That's H1. We have other H, that is other headings from H1 to H6. We'll talk about headings later, and other tags, we'll take them one after the other, but we are just going to use this for example as a case study. So this is starting. This first H1 is telling your browser to start here, start reading this particular text as a heading, a first case heading. Then once you reach this second one here, you should stop reading, making this a complete full statement or full heading. Let's take a look at a sample. You can see here that we have a code, hello world. This is a line of code that you expect your browser to read as a heading, because you placed it in a heading this way. Now, what this means is that you are telling your browser, start from this H1 and read this hello world as a heading. So it starts from here and ends here. This is how our tagging works. It starts from an opening tag and ends in a closing tag. Now let's take a look at the components of every tag. What are those things that a tag needs to have? You just scatter this class for me. Are the components of every tag. Every tag has an open bracket. This bracket, we call it angle bracket, which is this. This is your lesser than sign. And then it has a closing bracket. This is your greater than sign. Then it has the tag name. The tag name, which is usually H1, which is for heading, then P, which is for paragraph, and lots of them, which we discuss further inside this class. They are all called tag name, like this tag name. So you put the tag name in between the brackets, which is the lesser than symbol and the greater than symbol. Then we have the last phase, which is the closing tag, this slash, which acts as a closing tag for your HTML tags. So this is it. We are going to take a simple look at some coding. We are going to show example of these tags and how they works in real coding. So let's get to that. Now, if you open your Code Studio app, we are going to clear this text. I'm going to select all of them, then clear them so that we can focus on the example we are going to give. So we said that every tag starts with an opening and a closing. Every tag starts with an opening and a closing tag, except for self-closing tags. Self-closing tags. For example, let's take paragraph, or let's use h1 as an instance. Larger you want the text to be, the distance, the larger, or the higher the number of the h, or the lower the number of the h. For h1 is the highest, h2, h3, h6. The greater the number, the lower the text. So let's get to it. Now if I should close this, my Code Studio will suggest the closing tag for it. You see here now we have the opening tag and the closing tag. We have this h1, which is the opening here, and the h1, which is the closing here. These two represent an opening and a closing tag. Now whatever we enter in between is what the browser will display. So it's just like telling your browser, start from this first h1 and show this thing as a heading, then close or stop showing this thing as a heading here. That's how it was. For example, if we type in welcome to our class, or let's do something more simple. Let's say lesson 1 HTML tags. Or let me just remove this so that we can reuse something here. So heading 1 is now lesson 1. When you want to view what you typed in your code, you use this button. Click on the button up there, this button there. Click on it to view your code. Now let's look at this in real time, or in our browser. I'll click on the preview and it will show us what we wrote in our code, which is lesson 1. So it told our browser that this is a heading. It starts from here and ends here. This is how coding works. Now let's go back and add another code. Let's say we want to add another smaller heading. We are going to use h4 and we call this heading HTML tags. HTML tags. Okay, you see here, we as usual we have an opening tag, as usual here, an opening tag, and then a closing tag, and then what we want the browser to display. We are telling the browser that this should display these HTML tags as a heading on the fourth level. Display it as a heading on the fourth level. Now let's preview what we have here. As always, click here to preview your code. We are going to click on it. You can see here we now have a first level heading H1, which is lesson 1, and then a fourth level heading, which is HTML tags. If we go back to our code again, let's add another thing. We can call it paragraph. We can call it paragraph. The paragraph is something we already know what paragraph is. Now we are going to add another code, paragraph. In coding, we represent paragraph with P. So an opening tag and a closing tag. Our lesson ends here. Let's put it like that. Our lesson ends here. Okay, our lesson ends here. This is now a paragraph. If we should preview our code, we'll see that our browser will display this as a normal text, no string attached. This is how our opening tags and closing tags works in a HTML setting. All these ending parts is the HTML closing tags, while this part is the opening tags. This part is the opening tags, while this end is the closing tags. So this is about the opening and closing tags and how they work together. Then we have the last part, which is the self-closing tags. The self-closing tags works in a different way. They don't allow any what do you call it? They don't allow any they don't have any closing tag. They just start by themselves and close by themselves. For example, let's write something between this our paragraph. So some of this thing we'll also talk about them when we are discussing individual tags. But for now, for example, we are going to use something we call break. Break will split your text into two, which means from this our lesson, instead of being a single line, our lesson will be on a line, and then ends here will be on another line instead of being a single line as we saw before, right? This is how it works. We are going to preview the code now, and you will see how break breaks your code into double lines. You see here we now have our lessons. We now have our lesson ends here on different lines. That's because we added a self-closing tags on it, and these self-closing tags, they do something differently. They doesn't have a closing tag. They just stand on their own, the way we have here. They stand on their own the way we have here. We can add another self-closing tags that we call horizontal rules. What it does is that it draws a line. It draws a line between your code. You see, we broke this code, and yet we still draw a line in between them, which means we now have our lesson, then a line before we will now have ends here. Let's preview our code and check it out. You see, we now have our lesson here, a line. You can see the line, and then ends here. This is how you use your tags. This is how you start a code, or how you discuss with your browser on how to display it in using tags. We are going to move further into tags in our next class. We will be moving fully into different types of tags that we have in HTML and how to use them to create a beautiful website with your mobile phone. See you in the next lesson. Bye.